Hi and welcome back to Tales Against Humanity, / I Don't Work Here Lady. In today's episode, make a mess of my car, get messy yourself. Weird confrontation with Karen. This is a little bit of a twist. New manager judges someone on how they look, and the unexpected ending. Before we get started, make sure to subscribe so you will never miss a video. So let's get started. Make a mess of my car, get messy yourself. I was on my way home after a very long day working at the hospital. As much as I would have rather just kept driving, the gaslight blazing away on my dash told me to stop being lazy and just fill the tank. After hopping off the highway, I head for the small station I frequently use. It only has 2 pumps, both sides, so 4 spots. Even though it has great prices, I rarely have to wait more than a car or two for an open spot. Other than the station, the road is pretty much empty nearby. The station was on my side of the road, so I turned on my right-hand directional. As I begin to turn the wheel into the station, this lunatic in a Mercedes, coming from the other direction, sliced through the out lane and inches across my front bumper to beat me into the parking lot. I slammed on my brakes, sending my gym bag and a stack of folders shooting off the passenger seat into jumbled mess on the floor. I am not a big swearer, but that had me cussing like a sailor. As I pulled in, I noticed a police car in a parking spot outside the building that houses the cashier and the tiny convenience store. My hopes rose as I prayed the officer saw the crazy lady's stunt, and I was about to witness instant karma. No such luck. Sigh. She pulled to one side of the pumps. I pulled to the other. I got out, swiped my card, and started the gas flowing. Then, clear as a bell, I hear the snottiest sounding voice issuing from the Mercedes. This is unbelievable. I was clearly here first, but this idiot is filling up the other car first. No. He hasn't even started me yet. I swear these people are stupid as S***T out here. Hold on, Shelley. I have to deal with this moron, or I will be here all day. Now the dreaded excuse me is aimed right at me. You know you don't need to wait for the tank to be full before you start another car? Now come here and take this, she said, waggling a credit card at me. If I am late because of you, I will be calling your boss. And just so you know, it is very rude to service customers out of order. I was here ahead of that guy. I looked down and sure enough she has a New Jersey license plate. In NJ, you don't pump your own gas, an attendant does it for you. My state may have a few full service stations left, but honestly I haven't seen one in ages. Here, you pump for yourself. If she had gotten out of her car she would have seen I was that guy, but the pump blocked her line of sight. I considered an I don't work here lady style response, but the primped up entitled expression on this self-absorbed bee required more from me. She stared harder at me, raising her brows, and waggled the card even more emphatically, before I knew what to do. I let go of my pump, stepped closer, and took the card from her manicured fingers. As she sneered at me, I looked her right in the eyes and snapped my hand downward, flinging her card straight into the trash barrel beside the pump. Someone must have thrown a slushie or milkshake in there, because the card made an awesome splat sound when it hit the bottom. The harpy shrill screech that ensued made the thought of sorting out all the files on the floor of my car almost worth it. It could have stopped there, and I would have happily driven away with my half-full tank, but it was not over yet. She was screaming obscenities at me as I turned away, broiling out the Mercedes in her designer outfit, completely losing her mind. That was when the officer came dashing out of the store. Excuse me, miss, are you all right? What is going on? This man assaulted me and stole my card. He threw it in there, she says, stabbing a 3-inch long nail at the barrel. Is that correct, sir? Barely. She insisted, and I mean insisted, I take her card. Since I am under no obligation to provide her service with the card, nor did I want it, I disposed of it in the most expedient manner available to me. I replied, gesturing at the wonderful trash receptacle myself. That was a pretty petty thing too. I think you should get it for her, the officer decreed. The NJB was beaming with smug malice at that. I will under one condition. You detain us both, then go look at the store's parking lot camera. Once you see how we entered the lot, you can decide who goes dumpster diving. He raised a brow at me but says fine. He takes our licenses and tells us to both to wait there. She is a bit perplexed at first, but her natural entitlement must have convinced her she has TOB in the right. It is not long before she began to hiss a handful of pretty vile threats at me. I ignored her and finished filling my tank. My passive smiling confidence must have unnerved her eventually. She crept back into the driver's seat and began talking about lawyers with Shelley. About 20 minutes later, the officer returned. He handed me back my license and told me I'm free to go. Before New Jersey can get a word out, he very sternly rounds on her and said, "Registration, ma'am." That made cleaning up her mess totally worth it. Weird confrontation with Karen. So this happened last Saturday. I work at a mobile COVID testing site for the county. Usually we set up in a church parking lot or something, and customers pull up in their cars and we talk to them through their closed window, but it's not unusual to get members of the public who are just curious what we are doing, or that think we are giving out vaccines, or that we are a food bank, which, by the way, if you are lucky enough to not need a food bank at the moment, then you should donate. We see a lot of them, and they are always packed. So we have cones set up between our trucks to create a lane, and if you work registration you usually do an hour shift at a time. We weren't very busy, no cars in line. It was my last shift before we had to pack up, and I was sitting at the registration Reggie shack. I go to toss something in the trash, and I see this green car pull up perpendicular to the lane of cones. I start pointing to the lane, trying to let this old Karen know where to go. She pulls up right near me, maybe 20 feet away, and rolls down her window, which is kinda annoying since we have to tell half our patients not to do that, but I'm like, whatever, let's just get her in line, and then I'll tell her to keep her windows up. So I say to her, the line is right here, pull into it and come up to this cone. "K, what?" Me, the line. "Are you not here to get tested?" "K, no, I am looking for information on the church services." Me, "Oh, well, we are with, county name, public health, this is a COVID testing site." "K, a what?" Me, "A COVID testing site. We aren't with the church." She furrows her eyebrows and says the word like she hadn't heard it before. "K, COVID? Oh, you know, I would never catch anything like that. You see, I am immune because I have good chemistry in my blood. My ancestors were exposed to the bubonic plague, and we are protected against it and couldn't get sick. And my great-grandfather was exposed to the bubonic plague in 18-something date, and he had 2 kids born in 19-something and 1922. Basically, she goes on and on about her family lineage for longer than my patience would allow me to follow, but I stood silently and waited for her to stop talking. After maybe 2 minutes, she does, and I'm like, "Me, that's nice, ma'am, but as I said, we aren't with the church. If you are here to ask about them, they should be in that building over there." At this point, she gets out of her car, which is a big no-no. I got the first dose of my vaccine around Christmas, so I wasn't afraid of catching it, but she wasn't wearing a mask, and we can't have randos out and about the site, especially without one, because some of our newer staff haven't been vaccinated. If we become spreaders, it subverts what we are doing, and also because it looks bad to the public when they see people without mask hanging out. Me, "Ma'am, this is a testing site, you have to stay in your car." Her, "I would never catch any of this stuff and dash." I'm just gonna summarize her major points, but she ranted about how she had survived to be such and such old and all sorts of things, including being beaten by police. This lady was white BTW. At this point it was nearly the end of my shift, and she wasn't listening, so I grabbed my radio and said, "Hey, sheriff's deputy's name, can you come over here?" She went on and on about how the police cracked her head open, and they had her handcuffed, and she was bleeding a lot. One of my coworkers, G, who was on the next shift, saw her because she had parked next to his car, and was like, "Ma'am, what is the actual problem?" And I guess I hadn't noticed that she was yelling and gesticulating. The two sheriff's deputies have pulled up, and she's still going on about how her German grandpa had worked on the atomic bombs for the Americans after the war and even invented a cure for cancer before being invited by the King of Hungary himself to come to his country and blah blah blah. But I'm not racist because I am half Jewish dash. At this point, the charge nurse comes up with a yellow mask for her and tells me to give it to her, and the three people from the next shift and standing nearby wondering what's going on. G is still trying to figure out what the issue is, and the sheriff's deputies are all trying to be polite, but also trying to interrupt her. And she goes on like this for seriously 10 minutes before finally the deputies start ordering her back in her car. Meanwhile, I am kinda just laughing and everyone is exasperated, and I am trying to explain to the nurse what is happening. Finally, I think one of the deputies told her to GTFO or get arrested, and she gets back in her car. She drives off around the truck I drive for the unit, where there is no exit, and the cops are trying to ask me what exactly happened, but she stops at a part near where the lanes end and the hot zone is, and so they move to shoo her off again, but she finally just drives over a cone and goes on her way. The site manager, who had been in the bathroom, finally comes out, and I have to tell him, "Man, you totally missed it." This is a little bit of a twist. New manager judges someone on how they look, and the unexpected ending. This actually happened to a friend of my stepfather's. The woman in the story is a wonderful down-to-earth woman who just so happens to be extremely wealthy and owns a lot of local businesses, and has a heavy involvement in them, however doesn't dress like she has money. Pam was out and about one day shopping, and had been killing time before an important business meeting and decided to head inside early. Pam had walked in to speak to old manager about the yearly takings and new hires, New Manager Inc. She was dressed down as usual, however her hair, occasional makeup were always impeccable. Plus the huge diamond stud in her ears should have been a huge giveaway. New manager was a new hire and had, in the interviews, and seemed on paper a perfect fit, apart from thinking a little too highly of herself and slightly snooty attitude. However, this was common for this area and the younger generation, so old manager decided to give her a go and hired her. So Pam walks in, early for the meeting, and begin browsing, like she always does, taking in the aesthetics of the shop, the atmosphere etc., just waiting for old manager. New manager sees this, and gives Pam a dirty side-eye glance. Pam is checking prices, moving items back to where they should be etc., and obviously new manager finds this strange. New manager runs over looking annoyed, shouting at Pam to stop touching the products, that they are obviously well out of her price range and they do not allow people in to just browse. She rips the product out of Pam's hands, insisting that she should not be in the store. She is definitely not the type of client they cater for and she must leave. "You're putting off real customers," she said. Pam just stares at new manager, wide-eyed and open-mouthed, while new manager is attempting to hustle Pam towards the outside door. Pam, without saying a word, shoves off new manager and storms past her, through the back and into the back office. New manager runs after her, screaming that she definitely can't be back there, and that if she doesn't leave she will call the police and she, Pam, will be arrested. At this point, other staff members, some who know Pam, have tried explaining to new manager, but can't over her screaming, and customers are standing just watching all this unfold. When new manager makes it into the office, she finds Pam on the office phone and just starting a conversation. New manager screams again that she, Pam, cannot be back here, all the while grabbing for the office phone. A few moments later, old manager rushes into the back office, mobile phone in hand and a shocked expression on her face. New manager doesn't see this and again screams at Pam that she can't be back here, and that she, new manager, going to call the police and have her, Pam, arrested. Pam has had enough now and shouts, "What, you'll have me arrested from a store that I own?" Pam attempts to shout over new manager's screaming. She hadn't noticed old manager run in, went as follows. "Old manager, can you please calm this girl down? explain to her who I am, why I am here, and please tell me what in the world you were thinking when you took her on." With this, new manager suddenly pipes down and looks round. She heard what Pam had said, but it obviously took a few minutes to process. Old manager is standing open-mouthed like a goldfish gasping for air, while Pam is cool as a cucumber turns to make herself a coffee. Old manager suddenly remembers how to breathe and speak and chokes out. New manager. "This is Pamphlet, our owner and landlord. This whole row of shops belongs to her, and she has come in today to go over the yearly takings. And to help review the new hires we've taken on." Pam has a very active role in her business. Although she is not always seen by all staff, she is heavily involved in everything that is done and every decision made. This makes her a great owner and businesswoman, as she knows everything that goes on within her companies, and she is always fair. Now it was new manager's turn to be wide-eyed and open-mouthed. Pam sat down in the office chair, coffee in hand, and smiled at old manager. "Come sit," she said to old manager, and patted a chair next to her. "I think we will start with new manager's review first, don't you think, old manager?" Now Pam was never a lady to raise her voice. To be honest, she didn't need to. When she spoke there was a certain air of authority about her, usually twinged with kindness and smiles. Not today, however. Pam simply explained that the one thing she hated most in this world was being treated differently. To her it didn't matter if you had but a penny or £1,000,000. She would still treat you the same. That was the motto of her business, and this girl had gone against everything she believed in. Everything her and her husband had worked so hard for all these years. This was truly unacceptable, and would not be tolerated. Who knows how many potential customers she had chased away just because of how they look. So it's safe to say new manager lost her job, and after everyone in the community had heard about who she was, what she had done, and how she had treated Pam, Noon wanted to employ her, as a manager or anything else. Yes, Pam and her husband were extremely wealthy, but it was all hard work and effort that got them there, and they would never have done it without the people who had been there for them when they started out with nothing. They never forgot who they were or where they came from, and always treated everyone they met with kindness and compassion.